In 1991, a small game produced by a tiny internal team at Sega was released to an unsuspecting world. It was a game that would change the industry forever and prove to be the genesis of one of the most beloved and reviled media icons of all time. More like Hot Chick Heaven!
Well, I'm not a gamer, so maybe they'll respect me.
That just makes you a beta cuck. That's...
Sonic is cursed. It's a franchise that, at any moment, can vacillate between genuine greatness and the worst goddamn thing you've ever seen. And yet both these expressions of Sonic are equally valid and extremely on brand. But you know that. Everyone knows that. Even my partner, who is not a chad alpha gamer and has not played a single Sonic game in their life, knows that. There's little interesting or new to be said on Sonic at this point, especially on YouTube. There's even less to say about Sonic 06, the buggy, rushed, unfinished, unfocused, cringy disaster that Sonic will never, ever live down. You can find hundreds of videos and articles dissecting every single flaw of the gameplay and presentation. But there's one element of Sonic 06 that I've found tends to be overlooked in most of these dissections. The actual plot of the game.
Don't be late. Same to you.
Yeah, did you know that Sonic used to have a plot? Still does!
I am not weak!
Kind of. Now, you may be wondering, Nazine, what are you talking about? It's a Sonic game! It doesn't have a plot! And you're saying this because you're stupid and incapable of media literacy.
Whoa!
Yes, it's a Sonic game, but of the mainline games that I've played, Sonic 06 may be one of, if not the, single most fascinating story in the series. Not good, by any metric, but fascinating in its many failures and odd decisions. It's certainly the most ambitious of the 2000s games. Both Sonic Adventures featured different characters having different perspectives on the same events, but at the end of the day, both of these stories were fairly straightforward. And in Adventure 1's case, the multiple perspectives really just added up to a lot of contradictions. Heroes gave a different motivation for each team, but otherwise told the exact same story regardless of who you chose. Shadow the Gunhog, meanwhile, compensated for the high reactivity of its plot by just not having a plot at all, instead opting for a modular set of mostly unconnected scenarios that could be shuffled around depending on which collectathon the player decided to do.
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
Compared to all that, 06 is much bigger. 3 completely unique plot lines, each with 3 main characters, each with their own themes and ideas, each going over the same events through different perspectives, each featuring a different antagonist, mostly unrelated to the other 2, each centered around a massive foreign nation with its own deep lore and culture, and on top of all that, time travel. Even if 06 had the proper funding and time to make this happen, which it very much did not,
Hey.
this is a massive undertaking for any medium. And since this is Sonic 06, it's a complete and utter mess. So open up DeviantArt and start saving images to your Hot Chick Heaven folder, because you're about to experience the deep plot analysis of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. That's that? You don't actually want to spend 40 minutes on a Sonic plot deep dive? Well, too bad, because we're doing it anyway. Coward. Also, spoilers, I guess, if you actually care. Now, I get the feeling that most of you haven't played Sonic 06. Nor will you ever want to. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, here's the meat and bones plot of this game. We start in the vaguely Italian city/nation of Soliana. Sonic is there. Why? He goes where the wind takes him. to the money. Eggman attacks a religious festival because the royal jewel held by the leader of Soliana, Princess freaking Elise, is actually a Chaos Emerald. Sonic stops Eggman and saves Elise, but while running away, he is observed by a mysterious hedgehog that looks like a marijuana. One in-engine cutscene later, Elise is kidnapped, but not before giving Sonic her Chaos Emerald. Sonic saves Elise, and she tells him about the flames of disaster that will destroy the world, and how she's worried that Eggman will start the disaster again. Sonic's response? Just smile! Real empath right here. Sonic and Elise get attacked by Weed Guy, who calls Sonic the Iblis Trigger, and while they're fighting, Elise gets kidnapped again. Sonic goes to save her, but Eggman traps Sonic and friends in a time machine that he just has now and never uses again. Sonic and friends are sent to the future and run into Shadow and Rouge within 5 seconds of their arrival. The future is a messed up, fiery hellhole, but no one really cares about that, and everyone just wants to get home, which... valid. On the way there, Sonic witnesses this dude, original Shadow Do Not Steal, putting out the kill order on Sonic. Sonic discovers that Elise will die soon in what I can only assume is a drunk driving accident on Eggman's part, since there's no actual explanation for Eggman's ship failing. It just kind of explodes on its own.
This is terrible!
Sonic resolves to break time itself to save her. Using Chaos Emerald, Sonic and Shadow create a time portal that everyone goes through. Sonic goes to rescue Elise, but then she gets kidnapped. Again. Elise nearly kills herself to get away, and Sonic saves her. Following this, Eggman threatens to blow up Soliana with his egg carrier, so Elise very willingly allows herself to be kidnapped. Again! Sonic goes to rescue her, and fails.
Elise!
Luckily, Blaze and Silver, who are now cool, are here. Silver and Sonic use the Chaos Emerald trick to create a time portal that Sonic uses to save Elise at the end. Previously. In the future. Silver is floating around town, faces past and he's homebound. Expositing to no one in particular, Silver relates how the world got fricked up by Iblis, a fire demon that can take physical form but can also never really die. So Silver and Blaze, who is also here for some reason, are doomed to just kill him over and over again for all eternity. This makes Silver angry. One day, a guy named, no joke, Mephiles the Dark shows up, looking like this and claiming he knows how to stop Iblis. Silver, being an idiot, goes along with this guy with zero reservations.
Just as a flower comes from a seed, or a chicken comes from an egg, everything has an origin.
If only I could wipe away the impurities. Make it as beautiful as me.
Through a poorly rendered, super vague vision, Mephiles explains that Sonic is the Iblis Trigger, the Antichrist who is responsible for unleashing Iblis upon the world. To stop Iblis, Silver must kill Sonic, and with that, Mephiles sends them all back in time. After a whole lot of nothing happening, Silver fights Sonic and Elise gets kidnapped.
You're the Iblis Trigger.
A whole lot more nothing ensues, including yet another Elise kidnapping that happens between all the others. Silver confronts Sonic again, only to fight Shadow instead. Shadow, rather embarrassingly, beats Silver up. The two accidentally create a time portal. Shadow, who seems to know a bit about this Mephiles guy, suggests that Silver can learn the truth by jumping through this time portal and witnessing past events. How Shadow knows this specific time portal will lead them to what they need to see is never explained. The time portal takes them to the past, where they witness Elise's dad and other researchers attempting to harness the power of their... God? Solaris, for reasons that are mentioned in passing hours later. Elise is also here. The experiment fails and the resulting explosion kills almost everyone there. In addition, the explosion creates a shadowy goo pile that will one day become Mephiles and a floating flame that will someday become Iblis, meaning the two of them are actually two halves of the same being, Solaris. Neat, right? Silver chases after Iblis and tries to do something. I'm not sure what's happening here. Whatever it is, it fails because he sucks. Luckily, Elise's dad lives just long enough to use magic or whatever to seal Iblis into his own injured daughter. He explains that if she ever cries, Iblis will be released and destroy the world. but then he dies. This makes Silver... I don't know what this emotion is, but I don't like it. Silver carries an unconscious Elise out and then just kind of leaves without explaining any of this to young Elise, leading to a lifetime of trauma. Silver isn't very smart. Also, the opening cutscene makes a big deal of Elise remembering Silver from this moment, and it's established here that Silver is the one who gave her that Chaos Emerald, but like, she was unconscious for all of that and never actually saw him, so yeah. Silver creates the time portal for Sonic and then uses that same portal to head back to the future so that he can use the sealing technique Elise's father used on his version of Iblis. Silver tries to seal Iblis within himself but fails because he sucks, so Blaze sacrifices herself instead because, quote, her soul is already alit with flames. Alright, Iblis is gone forever, the end. Previously, in the present, Shadow, now an agent of GUN, the stupidly named defense agency that he was killing in droves during the last game, infiltrates an Eggman base to save Rouge. Rouge is on a mission to find the Scepter of Darkness and or the Book of Darkness, depending on what Google Translate came up with that day. They get the Scepter but are attacked by Eggman and it breaks, releasing Mephiles. Mephiles recognizes Shadow from all the time travel hijinks in Silver's story, but Shadow has no idea who this dude is. Mephiles forcibly sends all three of them forward in time, which is where Shadow and Rouge meet up with Sonic and friends. Along the way, they find Omega, who has long been shut down. Shadow opens the time portal with Sonic, but stays behind to follow Mephiles because he's acting cringe. Rouge, concerned about Shadow, comes up with a, frankly, bonkers plan. She finds Omega, gives him a Chaos Emerald, and then basically tells him to go into a coma for 200 years so that he can reconnect with Shadow in the future.
Downloading weed.exe.
Holy shit.
Speaking of Shadow, he's confronted by Mephiles, who reveals that in the future, Shadow has been permanently imprisoned within a diamond because humanity feared his power. Omega, fresh from Rouge's time paradox, saves Shadow, and the two head back to the present. Shadow fights Silver and goes through the origin of Solaris arc, but runs after Mephiles instead. Elise's dad gives Shadow an unused Scepter of Darkness, so Shadow uses it to seal Mephiles. He proceeds to leave it behind so his past self can break it in the future and kickstart this whole mess. Shadow isn't very smart. Shadow sends Silver packing and then heads back to deal with Mephiles once and for all. He now knows how to use the scepter to bind Mephiles, similar to how Silver learned how to seal Iblis. So that's his plan here. Of course, the scepter's broken, so naturally there's just another scepter floating over a fountain.
Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to the Wave Ocean, head to Wave Ocean. Agent Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to Wave Ocean immediately.
Remember that clip, it's going to come up a lot. With the Fountain Scepter, Shadow confronts Mephiles, beats him up, and seals him, but it doesn't work because Mephiles is Big Boy now, so Team Dark has to fight him, which they do, the end. Previously on... Honestly, I don't even know what the timeline is supposed to be anymore. Sonic dies! Yep. See, it turns out that the reason Mephiles tricked Silver into wanting to kill Sonic is that Sonic and Elise are so close that Sonic's death would make Elise cry, which will release Iblis so that Iblis and Mephiles can fuse back together for... reasons. Evil reasons. How Mephiles knew that this would make Elise cry despite never having once interacted with either character prior to this point is unclear. What's even more unclear is how Mephiles knew about the crying loophole in the first place. He was both a puddle and in a separate part of the base when Elise got saddled with the fire demon.
My machinations lay undetected for years, for I'm a master of deception.
Anyway, Solaris is reborn, breaking time. See, Solaris is an evil god because a lot of this started as an unrelated JRPG before it was awkwardly shoehorned into a Sonic game for the 15th anniversary. As for an in-story reason for why Solaris is so evil, he just is, you know? Not even the Sonic wiki really knows why. The time break seemingly kills everyone, save the playable characters Elise and Eggman for some reason. The heroes gather all the Chaos Emeralds scattered around time, i.e. previous levels, and use them to wish Sonic back to life because that's something the Chaos Emeralds can do now. And also, Sonic's soul is in the wind, and since Elise had Iblis inside of her, she can do special stuff, I guess. I mean, all she could do before was make a really weak force field that no one ever commented on. But I guess she could bring the dead back to life now. That's a reasonable progression of events. Following the infamous hot and heavy Hedgehog on human alliterative action, Sonic, Shadow, and S-Hog go Super Saiyan and kill God. But since Solaris is part Iblis, they can't just kill him as is, since he lives in all time, all the time. I don't pretend to understand what any of this means anymore. Sonic and Elise are somehow thrown further back in time when Solaris was just a candle? Sure. Elise blows it out, killing Solaris before it's even born and preventing the events of the game from ever happening, thus creating a Beethoven paradox in which the events that led to the current timeline are now impossible because and the final shot is of the moon, but that doesn't mean anything. Really doesn't mean anything, and you see why it was a really bad choice to throw time travel into this? Before we get into the nitty-gritty of each story, we need to talk about how 06's overarching narrative is structured. As mentioned before, there are 3 stories, each one focusing on a different Hedgehog, and they're contractually obligated to supporting player characters who add so little to the game in both a narrative and gameplay sense that they might as well not be there. Why are they here? Each story focuses on a different aspect of the overarching plot, Shadow on Mephiles, Silver on Iblis, and Sonic on Elise. As you saw, all 3 stories are intentionally written with a lot of gaps in them. Not plot holes, mind you, but gaps. Now, in theory, the way this will work out is that if you just play one story, there will be a lot of things that don't make any sense. Once you play all the stories, however, you'll be able to fill in those gaps with knowledge from another character. That sounds pretty dope. Great, even. Heck, plenty of games have done this style well. In practice, however, the only story here that's actually important is Shadow's, and thanks to the game's rushed development, that's filled with tons of traditional plot holes and glaring cuts.
Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to the Wave Ocean, head to Wave Ocean. Agent Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to Wave Ocean immediately.
In a lot of ways, the problems with the overarching narrative can all be traced back to this central conceit. Chief among them is that characters who should be front and center, characters who are hyped to oblivion prior to release, are rendered functionally pointless since, compared to Shadow, what they do doesn't impact the events of the story at all. And no one suffers from this problem more than... Yes, you're hearing right. Despite being the title character of not just this game, but the entire franchise, Sonic the Hedgehog is at most a bit player in the story meant to celebrate his 15-year anniversary. It's to the point where Sonic never interacts with the game's main villain until he kills Sonic all the way at the end of the game from behind, which means that Sonic has only ever seen Mephiles once with his own eyes. And honestly, that's kind of impressive when you think about it. Rather than Sonic being the protagonist of Sonic's story in Sonic the Hedgehog, the real protagonist here is Princess Elise. Oh boy. Sonic's story is dedicated first and foremost to developing Elise as both character and plot device.
Future Nathan here, with my very real voice. I was wrong about Sonic's story developing Elise as a plot device, since all the Fire Demon Coast stuff happens in Silver and Shadow's story. So that's another point against Sonic for all plot relevance. Don't do drugs.
This on its own isn't a bad thing. After all, Elise is fairly central to this narrative, being the host of Iblis, and since Silver and Shadow are busy doing not much actually, but I'll get to that, it mostly falls to Sonic. To this end, the main theme of Sonic's story is duty and responsibility, which has nothing to do with the freewheeling Sonic and everything to do with the actual, for-real monarch, Elise. Elise is a pretty shut-off character at first. She's too serious, too focused on her duties, and not enough on herself. She's sacrificed a lot for her nation, too much. She never asked to lead Soliana, and she was flat out unable to consent to her father sealing Iblis within her. Nevertheless, these are vital duties she must perform to protect both her people and the rest of the world. With that in mind, it makes sense that Elise would be as withdrawn and stiff as she is. Her own father made it clear that she can never cry under any circumstances without really explaining why. The mantra Sonic repeats to Elise, "just smile," isn't as empty a platitude as it may seem. Sonic has always represented pure freedom. He's the complete and utter opposite of the kind of person Elise is. Sonic's story is about Elise realizing that, as important as her duty is, she can't always put that first, especially before her own happiness. Through Sonic's influence, Elise grows from just the Princess of Soliana into her own person.
Though I've been frightened many times, I've also enjoyed this adventure. It allowed me to be something other than a princess. I was able to be myself. A girl.
This is the emotional core of both Sonic's story and the game as a whole. Sure, Silver has an attempt at an arc, and Shadow has his own mini-arc, but Sonic Team clearly put the most time into Elise's arc. Heck, they even gave Sonic an extra CG cutscene just to develop their relationship. And, you know, awkwardness of Sonic being a background character in his own game aside, this would be a pretty decent little arc. If any of what I just described actually happened.
I'm a gnome, and you've been... No!
Instead, Elise is a complete non-character with no agency whatsoever. Her only purpose in this story is to be kidnapped again, and again, and again, and again, so that Sonic can save her. See, I lied before when I said Sonic wasn't the protagonist of this story. He totally is, and that's a huge problem. Sonic doesn't develop. He doesn't have anything even close to an arc. He ends this game exactly the same way he started it. By all rights, this should be Elise's story, with Sonic just being a positive influence. But no, anything even remotely interesting in regards to Elise is pushed to the side for the sake of Sonic just being Sonic. The arc of the story is just Sonic, but more. And since those just smile moments are missing the emotional development for Elise that they need to have, they instead are portrayed as romantic in the "I'm nice to you, female, so that means we must be in love," which culminates in... yeah. And that's it. That's really all I can say about Sonic's story. It's a repetitive grind where Sonic fights Uncanny Valley Eggman for a cardboard cutout while a more convoluted story is happening in the background. The end. Speaking of a more convoluted story, are you ready for time travel? Silver's story mainly exists to establish Iblis, the big existential threat of the piece. Mephiles is the active antagonist, but the threat of Iblis and what it does to the future hangs over the entire narrative. The fiery hellscape glimpsed in Sonic's story is what all the heroes are in some way actively trying to avoid. It's also the main driving force behind the mystery of the overarching story. What exactly led to Iblis destroying the world? Who created it? Why? Why is it immortal? Etc., etc. Not only that, it's our introduction to 06's big new character, Silver the Hedgehog, a weed-shaped psychic meant to inject new blood into the series, similar to when Shadow debuted in Adventure 2. And as generic as Silver's intro is, there is potential here. A psychic time-traveling hedgehog with boots that take up most of his legs is pretty dope by Sonic standards. So it's a shame that he's just Trunks. No, really, he's just Trunks from Dragon Ball Z. The design doc even just flat out says that Silver is Trunks. That same document also mentions that Blaze is self-conscious about her breast size, which is... why would you ever write that? Okay, to be fair, he's not just Trunks, that's reductive. He's Trunks with every interesting character trait Trunks had removed. He's annoying.
It's no use!
Whiny.
It's no use!
Stupid. And
It's no use! It's no use! It's no use!
It didn't even have to be this way. There are glimpses of a more interesting, if not necessarily unique take on the time traveler trying to save the world trope here. Take this scene, for example, where Silver arrives in a desert.
This looks so beautiful.
What? You mean this desert?
Everything is so great here, isn't it? The sky is gorgeous and everyone's happy.
Huh?
Let's go!
Imagine that. Silver's world is so bad that he looks at this and thinks it's beautiful, which says a lot about him and his situation. The game flirts ever so slightly with Silver being this out-of-touch, naive kid who spent so long in Crisis City, yes, that's its actual name, that he's a fish out of water in normal society. He spent so long in a war zone, he doesn't know any other way to act. I do believe this interpretation of Silver is at least somewhat intentional on the part of the devs, just poorly developed. Take just how easily Silver believes Mephiles as an example. Also, while all the Sonic characters are teenagers, yes, really, Silver is actually one of the youngest, at only 14. I think if the game had stuck more with this kind of dorky, socially awkward interpretation, as opposed to the generic time-traveling warrior he is for 80% of this game, I think he'd be a lot more popular. So, basically, just make his personality from the fan dubs canon. Do it, Sega. Cowards.
Not many girls come in here because I get friend zoned so frequently. But that's okay.
I'd like to be in the friend zone. I'd like friends.
It's not as pleasant as you'd think. They don't treat you like a friend. They treat you like an item. Sometimes I wish I could be more than just an accessory to these women. But unfortunately, as a gamer, I don't get respect.
Well, I'm not a gamer, so maybe they'll respect me.
That just makes you a beta cuck.
You may be wondering why I'm talking about Silver as a character so much and not his actual story. So this is where I talk about that story.
If I had one!
Yeah, so after Silver gets sent back in time, he just stops being relevant at all, and ends up spending the vast majority of his playtime just faffing about until he has to show up in another character's story. Remember that desert scene from earlier? Yeah, that's the only thing of value from an otherwise pointless filler level in which Amy drags Silver to the desert because she feels Sonic might be there. You know, because of her girlish intuition. Oh yeah, Amy's here. See, Shadow and Sonic's rosters were full up, and Amy has to be in this game, of course. The one thing this game needs is more content, so she ends up getting awkwardly smushed into Silver's story before disappearing just as quickly as she appeared. But not before she has some extremely cringy girl talk with Elise.
Yes, but someone I know said to me, "Nothing starts until you take action." So I decided to heed his advice.
You wouldn't happen to have some feelings for this person, would you?
What? No, of course
It's
not.
okay. Love changes everything. It feels like every little moment in your life is huge, doesn't it? So, what does this guy look like? Have you already been on a date with him?
Oh, no, I really haven't.
A one-way love? That's so cute. Come on, there's no need to be shy. Look, you're a princess and you're super cute. That guy's the lucky one. I also have someone that I'm pursuing too. I wish us both luck.
Man, this is so relatable. Between his aforementioned cameo appearances, Silver grapples with the typical time traveler dilemma of, should I murder this at the moment innocent person to save millions of lives later? It's a rather generic moral conflict that lasts all of one scene before never being mentioned again. And yeah, there's somehow even less actual plot to talk about here than Sonic. There are still cutscenes, and Silver's more important in terms of overall plot relevance, but ultimately he has about 4, maybe 5 stages worth of actual story, and this game requires 9 stages of story from all characters, so this thing gets dragged out hard. Before we move on to Shadow though, I do want to comment on one thing Silver's story does right, and that's the ending, which of the main player stories is the only one to feel like an actual end. When Blaze sacrifices herself, it can be legitimately kind of touching and sad. Throughout the game, Blaze has been Silver's only real companion. She's his mentor, his best friend, and according to some fanfic writers, his love interest. She's a bit more than that, though. She's the only other character in the cast who understand what Silver has been through, who also lived through the nightmare future. Silver goes all out to save his world. He's willing to kill Sonic, and when that fails, he wants to sacrifice his own life to stop Iblis. And after all that, after everything he's presumably lost, he still can't do it. So he loses Blaze too. His world is saved, but the damage Iblis did may never go away, and now he has to face it without the only person who really understands him. It's not like their relationship is all that developed or anything, but compared to the absolute dearth of proper human emotion in the rest of the game, I do have to give Sonic Team credit here. Granted, it's just a ripoff of that one Trunks epilogue, and that did this whole idea way better, so yeah. Also, this is all immediately undone when Solaris breaks time, and then this version of Silver gets wiped from existence because screw you! Sonic 06 will never let you have nice things! Shadow's story focuses a lot on Mephiles, which is a lot of why I say Shadow's story is the most important. See, Mephiles isn't just the villain of Shadow's story, he's the villain of the whole story. He's in some way responsible for pretty much everything that happens. He's the final boss, and thus the answer to most of the game's mysteries is Mephiles did it. A side effect of this, of course, is that of the 3 stories, Shadows feels the most complete and fully realized, which is ironic considering it has the lowest production values and most obvious story cuts, see the Fountain Scepter.
Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to the Wave Ocean, head to Wave Ocean. Agent Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to Wave Ocean immediately.
In addition to that, Shadow's story somehow still finds time to give Shadow an actual arc in addition to its contribution to the overall plot. Surprisingly, it's an arc that actually builds on his previous appearances and feels like a proper sequel to Shadow the Hedgehog thematically, which is a weird thing to say. So, Shadow the Gun Edge, the game, built much of its non-plot around the theme of Shadow as a moral unknown. Is he a hero? Is he a villain? Is he both? Neither? Something else entirely? A lot of the endings of the game are dedicated to deciding what flavor of hero or villain Shadow is. There's a reason all of them include the phrase,
"This is who I am."
But of course, there is a canon ending, and of course, that canon ending definitively establishes that Shadow is a hero, albeit an edgy, reluctant one. His arc in 06 is a natural evolution of that ending. The question isn't whether or not Shadow is a hero anymore, now the question is whether people will accept him as a hero. Granted, this is mostly a repeat of Shadow's arc in Adventure 2 and in his own game, him coming to terms with humanity's flaws and deciding to protect them regardless, but it's a fair bit more personal this time. Even with Mephiles' defeat, there's no real guarantee that the Diamond future we saw won't happen. There's still a really good chance that the world will turn against Shadow, not for anything he did, but out of prejudice and fear, and they'll make his friends turn against him. Yet, in spite of all that, Shadow reaffirms his decision to protect humanity one last time. He rejects Mephiles' offer of unity in their shared monster status, and fights back against evil. And I think that kind of speaks to why Shadow remains an unironically popular character in spite of, you know, it's not just that he's cool, or edgy, or red. It's a solemn commitment to his ideals, how his gruff, arrogant demeanor combines with his inherent idealism. Whether he's following Maria's misremembered plan to destroy humanity, or following her actual promise to protect humanity, he always does this with complete 100% earnestness. But he's not naive or stupid like Silver. He understands that he'll never really be accepted by society at large due to his origins, but regardless, he'll sacrifice everything to protect the world. And he'll do it with his friends, Team Dark, who, like him, are outcasts. Heroes who are treated poorly for their origins or how they look. And yes, I did just stop this video essay to tell you why Shadow the fucking Hedgehog is actually an unironically good character and that he deserves a second game. Come on, Sega!
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
The game never explains how Eggman knows anything about Solaris or Elise. At one point it was probably meant for Mephiles to tell him about it, but that's just me guessing. It's implied Blaze remembered Sonic at several points, but this never goes anywhere. Even though Elise's dad is dead, she's still a princess, which is a choice. This plot is more concerned with keeping track of where each Chaos Emerald is at what time than literally anything else. Don't do drugs. Actually go ahead, get high. Frick it, I don't care anymore. I'm not getting paid enough for
There's not much to really say here, honestly. I've already covered most of the interesting or funny parts of this story. Elise kissing Sonic is stupid, Elise unaliving Solaris in the crib is not only stupid, but also goes against her theme of putting herself before duty, since all of the character development that she got from the story now didn't happen. The Hedgehog's going Super Saiyan is stupid, but admittedly in a fun way. The way this ruins Silver's ending is stupid. The whole thing's just dumb. That's really the best way to describe this story. It's dumb. It's really stupid. But it's not just stupid. It's stupid in a really complicated way. And in those complications, there are bits and pieces of something good here. The dynamic between Sonic and Shadow can be fun, mistranslations aside.
Don't be late. Same to you.
Team Dark remains an entertaining group ensemble. Mephiles is a cool villain even if his plan makes negative sense. There are parts of Silver I like. Quiet you. Shadow's personal arc, extremely rough presentation aside,
To the Wave Ocean, head to Wave Ocean.
shows what this story could have been. A natural evolution of the dramatic stories pioneered in adventure. A story that's far from great art, but fun, memorable, and charming. The voice acting and animation of Adventure 1 is garbage, but people remember that story fondly. The story of Adventure 2 is overly self-serious and suffers similar VA problems, but people remember it fondly. Shadow and Heroes have their problems, but okay, no one remembers the stories of those fondly, but they remember them at least, if nothing else than for the memes. But the story of Sonic 06? No one remembers this mess. It's not just poorly written. It's not just cringy. It lacks heart. It's a real shame, too. Ever since 06 bombed, Sega's never really attempted a complex Sonic story like this again. At least until Sonic Forces, which was not only half-hearted in its attempt at a story like this, but also nowhere near as complex or interesting outside of the wild tonal inconsistencies. The games post-06 have tended toward lighter, more straightforward affairs, less focused on capital P plot and more focused on being a joke delivery system. And they're good at that, don't get me wrong, but a part of me misses the batshit crazy soap operas with funny furry animals we used to get. those were fun. With Ian Flynn, the writer of the current really good Sonic comics, writing the next Sonic game, who knows? Maybe we won't just get another complicated, interlocking story, but a story that's unironically good for once. Good or bad, I just hope it's as fun to talk about as this story was. And yes, I did just spend
40
minutes giving you a deep dive into a Sonic story. Screw you, I'm going back to Hot Chick Heaven.
It's no use!